With me is Israel's Consul General to South India. Over the weekend, he was in the southern Indian state of Kerala to pay homage to Soumya. She was an Indian national who was killed in the rocket strikes by Hamas from Gaza into Israel. So welcome to WION. And my first question, an obvious question is, you were there at the family's house to be part of the grief because their family member has been killed in these rocket strikes. What was the feeling? What was your reaction? It must be an emotional journey, but nonetheless, it is being seen as a very warm gesture here in India.
So first of all, thank you very much for having me this morning. I appreciate this opportunity. And indeed, I just got back from Kerala late last night. It has been a very short but intense visit, very emotional and logistically complicated on my part. It was a last-minute decision, and like you said, a basic humanitarian gesture, nothing more than that. It was important for us to be able to send somebody in person to be with the family in this time of need and to show our tangible, personal support to them in this time of grief.
Mm-hmm. There has been, in a sense, a warm gesture, not only in Kerala, but also here in Delhi, because when her mortal remains arrived here in Delhi, your deputy envoy was here at the airport with the Indian minister. So was it a call taken at the higher ups that it's time that Israel should stand with India at a time when its national has been killed by the strikes in your country?
I think it even goes further than that. We have been trying to support and to make the process of moving the body to India for burial as smooth as possible, to support the efforts of the Indian government, both in the embassy in Tel Aviv and elsewhere. And by doing this in Delhi and here and elsewhere, I think even if it was not coordinated, this is something that really is an automatic gesture on our part. Being in the situation that we are right now, and being her actually killed by the same terrorists that are targeting us, this is a bond that cannot be broken. And the response that we've taken and the steps that have been done on the ground are, I think, very personal and very, let's say, combine us as a whole gesture towards the situation, the unbelievable situation the family finds itself in.
Mm-hmm. So any plans to support this family in a sense that it was an Indian national killed in Israel? And also if you can give us a brief details about the number of Indians there are in Israel working there.
So it's difficult to say about the number of Indians working in Israel. It varies between people that are staying for the long part, for shorter parts. I know that people are in transition at any given time, regardless of the COVID. So to pinpoint a number, it's extremely complicated. But at any given time, I know that there's between hundreds and thousands of Indian workers in Israel on a permanent basis. And aside from that, you may have students and business people that stay there for a longer periods of time. I can tell you that part of the more emotional reactions that I got were from fellow Indian caretakers in Israel that have watched the reporting from India about the funeral arrangements have a very, let's say, provided me with a very positive reaction to the steps that we've taken here.
Mm-hmm. So how do you see the spontaneous support by the people of India on social media for Israel at a time when the situation is escalating very fast, or perhaps on the hourly basis?
The support is amazing, and we see it in all layers and all levels of society. If it's our ordinary, usual ongoing contact people, and just the people on the street and people that may have known us, including officials and so on. And we are enjoying, I think, such a positive response because of the good nature and friendly relations that we have between Israel and India for such a long time. They are, again, from the other end, a very humanitarian, basic show of solidarity in our time of need, and we extremely appreciate it. And I think it basically reflects the good nature of relations that we have with India in all levels, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. So my last question to you is if you can give us a detail perhaps of the current situation on the ground, what is happening on the ground, and do you think that situation will perhaps abate in perhaps a few days, because this is an issue now of an international concern. We saw the United Nations Security Council having a discussion as well yesterday evening.
So we've been under this sort of indiscriminate rocket attack from Gaza for the past week. The situation on the ground, as you can imagine, is very complicated. Millions of Israeli citizens are still under the threat of rockets. And just before coming into this interview, there was another rocket launch attack towards the south part of Israel. And from the whole perspective, you know, this is a very complicated and enduring situation. Israel is trying to make sure that such infrastructure that can pose a future threat on Israel would not be available. The fact that Hamas and the Islamic Jihad organization and other fractions are able to threaten Israel, threaten Israeli citizens, and target civilian targets in Israel as hospitals, schools, regular homes, is something that no country would be able to tolerate. And Israel, for that sense, will do whatever it needs in order to defend itself and to defend its citizens. I do hope that this situation would ease in the next few days, or as soon as possible, and we are able to come back to a normal, quiet and peaceful coexistence. But this is very much depends on the way that Hamas decides to act. This is, just to remind you, this is a terrorist organization that controls Gaza for the last decade and basically holds the population of Gaza as hostages, trying to attack Israel on different occasions for its own purposes and interests. And this is the result that we see on the ground. And from any objective point of view, this is a situation that that nobody could tolerate.
So one additional question, Israel has sent a lot of assistance to India. If you can just briefly tell us how this assistance has been used in southern India, the hospitals. I saw some of the tweets as well. If you can give us the details where these equipments have been put in place.
So, like you know, a lot of equipment was sent from Israel to India, coordinated by our embassy in Delhi, and part of the equipment was allocated to South India. We were, in a sense, very fortunate to get 2 of the oxygen generators plans to be placed in Karnataka. One I can very happily share with you was operated last evening in Kolar in Karnataka, and the other one would be installed hopefully today in Yadgir in north of Karnataka. Aside from that, we are expecting through this shipment or others to follow to be receiving a few hundreds more of smaller oxygen generators to support the Karnataka government.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for speaking to WION extensively on many issues, and especially your visit to Kerala, something that has been dominating the airways, especially here in India, because it's seen as a very, very warm gesture, sir. Thanks so much, sir.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.